It was a hot summer day in July 1967. Race relations in Detroit had never been worse. People could feel something in the air, like a match was about to be struck. At 15, Maurice Wilson remembers seeing lots of smoke. Suddenly, his neighborhood became a war zone.
A lot of boom, boom, boom.
He says tanks were rolling down the highway, making their way towards his home. Wilson said his parents were scared. As a teenager, it was exciting for him, but it felt like they were being attacked.
Instead of watching it on, the Vietnam War, we was having it right in our backyard.
In 1967, there were race riots all across the United States. This one started after the police force raided an unlicensed after-hours bar that was frequented by the black community. What followed was 5 days of warfare between the predominantly white police force and the majority black residents. As a rookie police officer working in Detroit, Isaiah McKinnon was one of the few African Americans on the force. He says he got a call at 6 in the morning telling him there was a riot. McKinnon didn't believe it. But when he got to the scene, he remembers people breaking into stores and looting.
You can only arrest so many people. So you'd go and you'd lock up X number of people, and as you would leave, people would go back into the in the stores. It was almost comical.
After 18 hours of work, McKinnon was driving his 1965 Mustang home. He was still wearing his uniform when he was pulled over by 2 white cops. McKinnon says the older cop pulled a gun on him and said, "You're going to die tonight."
At that point, it's like time froze. And I could see his hand pulling the trigger. And I dove back into my car as they started shooting.
McKinnon was able to get away, but the 2 officers continued to shoot at him. He says the incident shows how ugly the race relations were back in 1967. Meanwhile, just across the river in Windsor, Ontario, people pulled up lawn chairs across the riverfront to watch Detroit burn. Fires were spread all across the west end of Detroit, while thousands were being arrested by police. Walt McCall was a local reporter for the Windsor Star who covered the chaos. He says he'll never forget what he saw.
Block after block of burned out buildings, not just stores and commercial buildings, but I remember entire streets of 2- and 3-story, the older apartment blocks burned to the foundations.
After the riot, many businesses and people fled the city, leaving it in a state of decay for decades. Maurice Wilson, who witnessed the riots, works in his neighbor's flower bed. He says he's got a lot of hope that it will finally turn around.
I'm glad it's coming back to where this was from last year, year before. The deterioration, the remodeling, the fixing up the houses. It ain't they're not setting fires anymore.
Detroit's come a long way since the riots of 1967. Wilson tells me he'll continue to keep his neighborhood looking good while the homes around him slowly become habitable again. Stacey Janzer, CBC News, Windsor.